Hey and welcome back. My name is Fabian. I'm a former automotive strategy consultant turned digital product manager. And in today's session, I will be covering brand management and marketing strategies in automotive. It's arguably one of the biggest and most important topics in the industry. One study I read a couple of years ago basically argued that 60% of all profits in the automotive industry stem from premium. Premium here defined as the willingness of customers to pay more for a objectifiably similar vehicle in the same category. So comparing, for example, the I don't know, Ford Fiesta and Volkswagen Polo and all of the other vehicles in this category, and then trying to understand how much more customers are willing to pay for this premium above the kind of most basic car in the segment. So it's arguably a really, really big topic. We'll be covering a couple of avenues today. So first, brand positioning and differentiation. Secondly, brand identity and visual branding. Thirdly, the kind of product portfolio management and brand extensions. Fourthly, integrated marketing communications. Fifthly, digital marketing and customer engagement. Topic 6, sponsorships and brand partnerships that are very relevant for some brands. Customer experience and relationship management afterwards. And finally, brand reputation and crisis management. So I'll give you a little bit of flavor across the entire marketing spectrum in automotive. Automotive companies, they spend a lot of time and resource on defining their unique value propositions, their target audience, their competitive advantages that make them distinct from other manufacturers and make their product offerings unique in the marketplace. And this has arguably been recently one of the big factors when it comes to why certain companies succeed in the EV race and others don't, is that some have this reputation that is associated with quality, reliability, trustworthiness, safety, and what have you, compared to other manufacturers that are potentially quite new to the market and still have to build up this reputation. And secondly, it is also one of the biggest factors that contributed to the recent consolidation in our industry. So thinking about companies like PSA, for example, or any other big merger, they have either been mostly one of two factors, either about kind of scale economies and sharing kind of knowledge, platforms, other types of resources, or about geographical footprint to make still access the kind of wider ecosystem, but make the geographical footprint of one ecosystem of companies bigger. So hence why this is a topic of major importance. And thirdly, where companies failed in the past is when they tried to enter a market and didn't really acknowledge the unique differences. So lots of manufacturers, for example, tried to enter South Africa, the Japanese market, and didn't really try to understand the unique differences of what customers in this market really want. Similar in China, where manufacturers just thought they could kind of copy paste blueprint one successful product into a new market. Didn't acknowledge, for example, that Chinese and Japanese customers, they are very technologically advanced, that customers in South Africa, they don't necessarily have the infrastructure for certain types of products. So in a nutshell, it is really important that manufacturers really understand the unique differences across different market segments, especially when expanding globally. And generally, there are a couple of factors in terms of brand identity and visual branding that are important. Of course, the most obvious points potentially include things like logos, color schemes, typography, design elements that convey brand personality and values, etc., that generally manufacturers want to make resonate with customers. But then there has also recently been a trend to kind of a more individualized approach in terms of branding. So taking Jaguar Land Rover as one example, who previously, until last year, traded or had two arms of their business, one Jaguar and one Land Rover, and now has four houses of brands with the Discovery, the Defender, the Range Rover, and the Jaguar as four distinct kind of brand personalities with individual customer groups, communications, etc. So a much more kind of personalized approach. There are various strategies manufacturers employ to leverage brand equity in terms of introducing new vehicle models, trim levels, special editions, etc. This will vary drastically across different brands. So if you think about more mass market vehicles like a Volkswagen Golf, for example, they have a very strong tradition in terms of kind of model year launches and refresh, whereas other manufacturers potentially explore a little bit more. Others, I know, can afford focusing more on special editions because they have these customers that are willing to pay for, I know, very kind of unique, bespoke, special type of vehicle, almost in terms of exclusivity that kind of makes them distinct and communicate a certain values. Recently, there has also been a trend to kind of more unconventional approaches. So lots of traditional manufacturers work with model years, and so kind of offering a given type of base spec that customers can spec up for a certain time period. Whereas recently, other kind of new entrants in the industry try to rethink this approach and basically just refresh a given model and kind of break free from some of these traditional processes. In terms of communications, especially integrated marketing communications, it's a really big topic in automotive brand management, and automotive OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, use multiple communication channels, including advertisements, public relations, PR, digital marketing, and experience marketing. Recently, we have seen a trend to some of these newer medias where even fairly traditionally conservative brands entered platforms like Instagram and TikTok and what have you to just make sure they're present across the channels while sticking true to some of their brand values. This includes all sorts of kind of digital marketing channels. They of course have their website, their social media, their email marketing, mobile apps, etc. to engage customers. But what is really interesting here is that recently we have seen a couple of trends. So for example, kind of a streamlining across platforms. So almost having like a singular customer identity that makes sure that customers have a seamless transition across channels, for example, the website, retailer, and mobile. And what we've seen is a simplification of the product offering, but also of the experience. So, for example, more personalized recommendations and things like vehicle configurators and what have you. Next, sponsorships and brand partnerships is really important for automotive companies, that they're visible in sports events, in kind of some festivals and entertainment properties, that they market to influencers. Just to give two examples here, lots of the manufacturers, they give products for free to influencers, whether it's musicians, actors, and what have you, to make sure their kind of brand is associated with this type of customer. And then secondly, what is also interesting, I attended the Future of the Car conference in London last year, and I believe it was the Aston Martin CEO, and he also owns at least a good chunk of Aston Martin. He says, okay, for us, despite all of these conversations about sustainability and what have you, for us, Formula One is still a really big topic. So for them, it was this kind of motto of race on Sunday, sell on Monday, and they could really see the spike of doing well in a race and then selling more vehicles afterwards. Kind of moving on to customer experience and relationship management, briefly touched on this, but everything is more going to utilizing data, various customer data points like social demographic data, purchase history, browser cookies, and what have you, to make really personalized recommendations when it comes to purchase, and then providing more personalized experiences in terms of, in the vehicle and then also across the other digital channels for customers post-purchase, to really increase brand loyalty and long-term profitability, including new profit channels in terms of services manufacturers offer. And finally, the topic of brand reputation and crisis management. It's a really interesting one that has changed quite a bit recently, where some of the traditional German manufacturers, they are very focused on kind of specific quality measures in terms of vehicle dimensions, in terms of paint jobs and what have you, in terms of a kind of zero tolerance, besides some few exceptions in terms of safety and regulatory compliance, etc. And recently what we've seen is that some of the newer entrants in the industry, they have a slightly different approach. They test and learn a little bit more in the markets, and also still trying to find their way, because they also realize that even customers of, some early adopters of things like the Tesla Cybertruck, they aren't willing to accept everything, but they're still finding their ground. But what's really interesting to see is disruption of convention in terms of brand reputation and crisis management. So just to summarize, we've discussed the importance of building strong brands, engaging customers, delivering exceptional experiences to drive the success in a very competitive automotive market. I hope this was somewhat useful and interesting, and I would highly encourage you to continue to explore further resources on brand management and marketing best practices. I very much looking forward to welcoming you to the next video, and thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.